smiles in the center of the ring after another brilliant performance tonight.
I'm the happiest man alive. I told the world I was going to do it, and I did it. I'm still the greatest. Nobody does it like...
Blood dripped from Ali's swollen left eye as he slumped into the leather chair, his championship belt still glistening with sweat and arena lights. The CBS studio felt suffocating after the roar of 20,000 fans at Madison Square Garden. Host William Buckley adjusted his tie, that familiar smirk playing across his lips as cameras rolled live across America. So Muhammad, after tonight's brutal 15 rounds with Frazier, you're still the heavyweight champion. But let me ask you something that really matters to our viewers tonight. Buckley leaned forward, his voice dripping with calculated venom. Or don't you think your constant criticism of America, your refusal to serve in Vietnam, makes you nothing more than an ungrateful Negro who bites the hand that feeds him? The studio fell silent. Camera operators froze. Even the makeup artist in the corner stopped breathing. Ali's bloodshot eyes locked onto Buckley's pale blue ones, and for a moment, the only sound was the hum of television equipment. Ali slowly wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his glove, never breaking eye contact. William, let me tell you something about gratitude." His voice was hoarse but steady, each word deliberate. "You think America fed me? Brother, I fed myself. With these hands, with this heart, with this mind that you and your people tried to break since I was born. Cassius Clay in Louisville, Kentucky." He leaned forward, his presence filling the frame. "Do you want to talk about biting hands? Let me tell you about the hands that really fed me. The hands of my mother, Odessa, working in white folks' kitchens for $30 a week. The hands of Angelo Dundee, who saw something in a scared 12-year-old kid whose bicycle got stolen. The hands of every black person who scraped together 50 cents to watch me fight, because they needed to see one of us win something. Anything in this country." Buckley shifted uncomfortably, realizing his trap was backfiring spectacularly. "But surely you must acknowledge the opportunities America has given you." "Opportunities?" Well, Ali's laugh was bitter. "And man, I had to fight for every opportunity. When I won Olympic gold in Rome in 1960, you know what happened when I came home to Louisville? I couldn't eat in half the restaurants downtown. That gold medal around my neck didn't mean nothing to the white waitress who told me, 'We don't serve your kind here.'" The camera zoomed in as Ali's voice grew stronger, the pain from his fight forgotten. "You talk about Vietnam like I owe this country my life. Let me ask you something, William. How many Vietnamese ever called me nigger? How many Vietnamese ever lynched my people? How many Vietnamese ever made my grandmother step off the sidewalk when white folks walked by?" Buckley's face reddened. "And that's hardly the point. That's exactly the point." Ali slammed his glove on the armrest. You want me to go fight yellow people I got no quarrel with, while my own people can't vote in Mississippi? While black children in Alabama get attacked by police dogs for wanting to go to decent schools? You call that gratitude? I call that insanity." The studio audience, initially hostile, began murmuring. Some nodded, others looked uncomfortable. Ali continued, his words flowing like poetry mixed with fire. "Peter William, you and folks like you been running this same game for centuries. You give us crumbs and expect us to be grateful for the whole loaf. You let one of us succeed and then use us as proof that the system works. But I ain't your proof of nothing except what happens when a black man refuses to accept your limitations." He stood up slowly, towering over the seated host. "I'm America, William. The real America. The America that built this country with unpaid labor. The America that fought in every war you ever started, even when we couldn't vote for the presidents who sent us to die. The America that created jazz and blues and rock and roll and everything else you call American culture." Buckley tried to regain control. "But your inflammatory rhetoric..." "Inflammatory?" Ali's eyes blazed. "Truth is only inflammatory to liars. I speak for every black mother who cries herself to sleep, wondering if her son will make it home alive. I speak for every black father who has to explain to his daughter why she can't be a princess in the movies. I speak for every black child who looks in the mirror and wishes they were white because that's what this society taught them to want. The camera captured every emotion crossing Ali's battered face. And you want to know what changed tonight, William? Not just that I beat Joe Frazier. What changed is that millions of people watching this show just heard a black man tell the truth without apologizing for it. Without shuffling his feet or grinning or saying, "Yes, sir," to make white folks comfortable. He picked up his championship belt, holding it high. This belt don't make me special. What makes me special is that I refuse to be what you want me to be. I refuse to be grateful for oppression. I refuse to be quiet about injustice. I refuse to be your good Negro. The studio was electric now. Phone lines at CBS were lighting up across the country. In living rooms from Harlem to Hollywood, people were calling their neighbors, telling them to turn on their televisions. And let me tell you something else, Ali continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper that somehow commanded more attention than shouting. To every young black person watching this right now, I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you don't have to accept what they tell you about yourself. You don't have to be grateful for scraps. You don't have to apologize for demanding equality. He looked directly into the camera. And to every white person watching who thinks I'm being ungrateful, ask yourself this. Would you be grateful if your people had been enslaved for 250 years, then told to be patient for another 100? Would you be grateful if your children couldn't swim in public pools? If your family couldn't buy houses in decent neighborhoods? If your very existence was treated like a problem to be solved? Buckley made one last desperate attempt. But don't you think your success proves that America is the land of opportunity? Ali smiled, and for the first time that night, it reached his eyes. My success proves that the human spirit can't be broken, William. It proves that talent and determination can overcome even the worst obstacles. But it don't prove America is fair. It proves that some of us are strong enough to succeed despite America. He sat back down, suddenly looking tired but victorious. You see? You brought me here thinking you could embarrass me, thinking you could make me look like an angry black man who don't know his place. But you made a mistake, William. You gave me a platform to tell the truth to millions of people at once. The host was visibly shaken now. Do I think we should move on to lighter topics? No, we ain't moving on, Ali interrupted firmly. Oh, because this is the topic. This is the only topic that matters. How long are we going to pretend that this country treats all its citizens equally? How long are we going to act like racism is just a few bad apples instead of the whole rotten tree? He leaned forward again, speaking directly to the camera. To every person watching this, whoever felt like they didn't belong, whoever felt like they had to hide who they really are to be accepted, whoever felt like they had to be grateful for less than they deserved, this is for you. You belong here. You deserve everything this country promises, and you don't have to apologize for demanding it. The silence stretched for what felt like hours, but was only seconds. Finally, Buckley cleared his throat. We'll be right back after these messages. As the cameras stopped rolling, Ali stood up and walked toward the exit. Buckley called after him. Muhammad, where are you going? We have 10 more minutes. Ali turned back, that famous smile spreading across his bruised face. At William, I said everything I came here to say. The rest is up to them. He gestured toward the camera. Oh, but I'll tell you this, after tonight, things are going to be different. Not just for me, but for everybody who looks like me. You just gave me the biggest platform in America to tell the truth. And truth has a way of spreading like wildfire. As Ali walked out of the studio, his footsteps echoing in the hallway, Buckley sat alone at his desk, realizing he had just witnessed something that would be replayed for generations. The phones were still ringing. America was still watching, and nothing would ever be quite the same. If you felt that fire, that truth, that raw power of standing up for what's right, smash that subscribe button right now and let me know in the comments what moment hit you the hardest. This is just the beginning of Ali's story, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Hit that notification bell because the next chapter will blow your mind. The aftermath of that interview would shake the foundations of American media, politics, and society itself. Network executives would hold emergency meetings. Politicians would scramble to respond. And in living rooms across America, families would have conversations they had never had before. But the real story was just beginning. Because what Ali didn't know as he walked out of that studio was that his words had reached someone who would change the course of his life forever. 3 days after the interview aired, Ali was training at his gym in Miami when his manager, Herbert Muhammad, burst through the doors with a telegram in his hand. His face was pale, his usual calm demeanor completely shattered. "Champ, you need to see this," Herbert said, his voice trembling. "It's from Washington." Ali stopped hitting the heavy bag and turned around, sweat dripping from his forehead. "What kind of telegram from Washington?" "The FBI again?" Herbert shook his head. "No, this is different. This is from someone much more powerful." Ali grabbed the yellow paper and read it aloud. "Muhammad Ali, your words on the Buckley Show have reached the highest levels of government. There are those who want to silence you permanently. There are others who want to use you. Meet me tomorrow at midnight at the Lincoln Memorial. Come alone, a friend who understands the price of truth." The gym fell silent. Angelo Dundee stopped wrapping another fighter's hands. The sparring partners stopped moving. Even the sound of jump ropes hitting the floor ceased. "And this has got to be a joke," Ali said, but his voice lacked conviction. "But who signs a telegram? A friend who understands the price of truth." Herbert's face was grim. "Champ, after what you said on that show, half the country wants to give you a medal, and the other half wants to see you in prison. Or worse, maybe this friend is trying to warn you about something." Ali crumpled the telegram and threw it in the trash. "I ain't scared of nobody in Washington. I said what I said, and I meant every word." But as he resumed hitting the heavy bag, his punches lacked their usual rhythm. The telegram had unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the interview, about Buckley's face when he realized his trap had backfired, about the phone calls that were probably happening in government offices right now. The next evening, against everyone's advice, Ali found himself on a plane to Washington. He told Herbert he was visiting his mother in Louisville, but instead, he took a taxi straight to the Lincoln Memorial. The irony wasn't lost on him, meeting at the feet of the president who had freed the slaves to discuss the freedom he was still fighting for. At 11:55, Ali stood alone in the shadow of Lincoln's massive statue. The memorial was empty, except for a single security guard who seemed to be looking the other way. The silence was eerie after the constant noise of training camps and arenas. At exactly midnight, footsteps echoed across the marble. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, distinguished black man in an expensive suit. As he came closer, Ali's eyes widened in recognition. "Thurgood Marshall," Ali whispered. The Supreme Court Justice smiled. "Hello, Muhammad. Thank you for coming." Ali was speechless for a moment. Thurgood Marshall, the man who had argued Brown versus Board of Education, the first black Supreme Court justice, was standing before him at midnight like some kind of secret agent. "Justice Marshall, what are you doing here?" "How did you—" Marshall raised his hand. Walk with me, son. These walls have ears, even at midnight." They walked slowly around the memorial, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. Marshall spoke quietly but urgently. "Muhammad, what you did on that television show 3 nights ago was either the bravest thing I've seen in 30 years of fighting for civil rights, or the most dangerous. Maybe both." Ali looked confused. "Dangerous? I just told the truth." Marshall stopped walking and turned to face him. The truth is always dangerous to those in power. But your truth, delivered the way you delivered it, to the audience you delivered it to, that's revolutionary. And revolutions make powerful people very nervous." He pulled out a manila folder from inside his coat. "I've seen the FBI reports on you, Muhammad. They've been watching you since you converted to Islam. They've been listening to your phone calls, reading your mail, following your associates. But after that interview, the surveillance has intensified dramatically." Ali felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October night air. "Ooh, what kind of reports?" The marshal opened the folder. "They're building a case to strip you of your citizenship. They want to deport you as a subversive. They're looking for any excuse. Tax evasion, draft dodging, association with known communists. They want you gone, Muhammad, because you're too powerful, too influential, and too honest." The weight of Marshall's words hit Ali like a heavyweight punch. "Ah, but I was born here. This is my country. Your country, yes, but not their country. To them, you're a threat to the established order. A black man who refuses to stay in his place, who has a platform to reach millions, who speaks truth to power without fear. That's their worst nightmare." They continued walking, passing under the lights that illuminated Lincoln's words carved in stone. Marshall continued his warning. But there's something else. Something that could be even more dangerous. There are people in the government, powerful people, who want to use you. They want to turn you into their symbol, their proof that America is changing, their token of progress. They want to control your message, sanitize your words, make you safe for white consumption. Ali's jaw tightened. "And nobody controls what I say." Marshall smiled grimly. That's exactly what they're afraid of. And that's exactly why you're in danger. They can't buy you, they can't intimidate you, and they can't ignore you. So they're going to try to destroy you. He handed Ali the folder. "These documents show their plans. They're going to come after your boxing license in every state. They're going to pressure your sponsors to drop you. They're going to make it impossible for you to earn a living. They want to break you financially and professionally until you have no choice but to either leave the country or apologize and become the good Negro they want you to be." Ali stared at the folder, his hands shaking slightly. "How do you know all this?" Marshall's expression was grave. "Because I've been fighting this system for 40 years, son. I know how it works. I know what they do to black men who get too powerful, too vocal, too dangerous to their comfortable lies." They reached the steps of the memorial and sat down. Two black men in the shadow of the great emancipator, discussing a freedom that still felt incomplete. "So what do I do?" Ali asked quietly. Marshall was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "You have three choices, Muhammad. You can back down, apologize, become the safe Negro they want you to be. You'll keep your boxing career, your money, your comfortable life, but you'll lose your soul." Ali shook his head immediately. "That ain't happening." "I didn't think so." "Your second choice is to fight them head on. Continue saying exactly what you think, damn the consequences. You'll probably lose everything, your career, your money, maybe even your freedom, but you'll keep your integrity." "And the third choice?" Marshall smiled for the first time that night. "The third choice is the hardest one. You become smarter than they are. You learn to fight the system from within. You use your platform strategically. You pick your battles. You build alliances. You play the long game." Ali looked confused. "That sounds like backing down with extra steps." Marshall shook his head. "No, son. That's revolution with strategy. That's how we won Brown versus Board. That's how we're going to win everything else. Not by charging straight into their guns, but by outmaneuvering them, outsmarting them, outlasting them." He stood up and began walking toward the parking area. "Think about it, Muhammad. You have a gift. Not just your boxing ability, but your ability to reach people, to make them think, to make them feel. That's a weapon more powerful than any they have. But weapons are only effective if you know how to use them." As they reached the edge of the memorial grounds, Marshall turned back one more time. "Whatever you decide, know this. What you said on that show has already changed things. You've given voice to millions of people who felt voiceless. You've shown young black people that they don't have to accept less than they deserve. That can never be taken away." He handed Ali a business card. If you need anything, call me, but be careful who you trust. The revolution you started with those words is going to attract all kinds of people. Some who want to help, and some who want to use you for their own purposes." As Marshall disappeared into the darkness, Ali stood alone under the memorial lights. holding the FBI folder and the business card. The weight of his words from 3 nights ago suddenly felt heavier than any championship belt he had ever carried. He opened the folder and began reading by the light of his phone. Page after page of surveillance reports, transcripts of phone calls, photographs of him entering and leaving buildings. They had been watching him for years, but the reports from the last 3 days were different, more urgent, more detailed, more threatening. One document made his blood run cold. It was a memo from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover to the Attorney General, dated the day after the Buckley interview. And subject, Muhammad Ali, immediate action required. Recommend implementation of COINTELPRO protocols. Subject has become a clear and present danger to national security and social order. Authorize all necessary measures to neutralize threat. Ali's hands were shaking as he closed the folder. Neutralize threat. He knew what that meant. He had heard the stories about other black leaders who had become threats. Some had been arrested on trumped-up charges. Others had been discredited through planted evidence or false accusations. And some had simply disappeared or died in mysterious accidents. As he walked back toward the taxi stand, Ali's mind was racing. Everything Marshall had said was true. He was at a crossroads that would determine not just his own future, but the future of everyone who looked up to him. Everyone who had been inspired by his words on that television show. The taxi ride back to the airport was silent, but Ali's mind was anything but quiet. He thought about his mother, Odessa, and how proud she had been when she watched the interview. He thought about the young black kids who had written him letters, saying his words had given them hope. He thought about the death threats that had started arriving at his gym the day after the show aired. By the time his plane landed in Miami, Ali had made his decision. He wouldn't back down, but he wouldn't be reckless either. He would be strategic. He would be smart. He would use every tool at his disposal to fight a system that wanted to destroy him. But first, he had to survive what was coming next. Because, as his plane touched down, FBI agents were already waiting in the terminal, and the real fight of Muhammad Ali's life was about to begin. The next morning, Ali woke up in his Miami hotel room to find his manager Herbert pacing frantically by the window, phone pressed to his ear. The conversation was heated, full of words like impossible, outrageous, and we'll fight this. What's going on? Ali asked, still groggy from the late night in Washington. Herbert hung up and turned around, his face pale. Champ, they're moving fast. Faster than we thought possible. Ali sat up in bed, instantly alert. Who's moving fast? What are you talking about? Herbert handed him a stack of newspapers. The headlines hit Ali like a series of body blows. Ali's boxing license under review in New York. Sponsors distance themselves from controversial champion. The Congress calls for investigation into Ali's anti-American statements. Veterans groups demand Ali apologize or face consequences. Ali read through the articles, his anger building with each paragraph. They were quoting his words from the Buckley interview out of context, making him sound like he hated America and all white people. They were interviewing boxing experts who questioned whether someone with his radical views should be allowed to represent American boxing. This is exactly what Justice Marshall warned me about, Ali muttered. Herbert looked confused. To Justice Marshall. When did you talk to... He stopped himself. Never mind. We have bigger problems. The New York State Athletic Commission is meeting this afternoon to discuss suspending your license. If New York goes, other states will follow like dominoes. Ali stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Miami skyline. You let them come. I ain't backing down from what I said. Champ, you need to understand what this means. No boxing license means no fights. No fights means no money. No money means... No money means I'll find another way to make a living, Ali interrupted. But I won't find another way to live with myself if I apologize for telling the truth. Herbert sat down heavily in a chair. There's more. The IRS is launching an audit of your taxes going back 5 years. The army is reviewing your draft classification again, and there are rumors that some of your Muslim associates are being investigated for subversive activities. Ali turned from the window, his expression grim but determined. They're trying to destroy me from every angle. Yes, they are. So what are we going to do? Before Ali could answer, there was a knock at the door. Herbert looked through the peephole and frowned. It's two men in suits. They look like federal agents. Ali's heart rate spiked, but he kept his voice steady. Don't let them in. Herbert opened the door to reveal two FBI agents, both white, both wearing identical dark suits and serious expressions. The older one, a man in his 50s with graying hair, spoke first. Mr. Ali, I'm Agent Patterson. This is Agent Rodriguez. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your recent television appearance. Ali gestured for them to sit down. Ask away. I got nothing to hide. Agent Patterson pulled out a small notebook. Mr. Ali, in your interview with William Buckley, you made several statements that some have interpreted as anti-American. Would you care to clarify your position on your loyalty to the United States? Ali looked the agent directly in the eyes. My position is the same as it was on that show. I love America enough to tell the truth about it. I love America enough to want it to live up to its promises. I love America enough to fight for the rights of all Americans, not just the ones who look like you. Agent Rodriguez leaned forward. But you also stated that you refused to serve in the military. How do you reconcile that with patriotism? I reconcile it by understanding that there's a difference between patriotism and blind obedience, Ali replied. A patriot questions his government when it's wrong. A patriot fights for justice at home before he fights wars abroad. A patriot refuses to kill people who never did him any harm, while his own people are being killed in the streets of America. The agents exchanged glances. Patterson made notes while Rodriguez continued the questioning. Mr. Ali, are you now or have you ever been a member of any organization that advocates the overthrow of the United States government? Ali almost laughed. Agent Rodriguez, the only thing I want to overthrow is ignorance, racism, and injustice. If that threatens the United States government, then maybe the government needs to look in the mirror. Patterson closed his notebook and stood up. Mr. Ali, let me be clear. Your words have consequences. Your influence over young people, particularly young black Americans, is significant. We hope you'll consider the impact of your statements on national unity and social order. Ali stood up as well, towering over both agents. Agent Patterson, let me be clear right back. My words have consequences because they're true. If the truth threatens your social order, then your social order is built on lies. And I ain't responsible for protecting lies. After the agents left, Ely and Herbert sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Herbert spoke. Champ, they're not just trying to destroy your career. They're trying to destroy you as a symbol. They want to make an example out of you to scare other black athletes, other black leaders, anyone who might think about following your lead. Ali nodded slowly. I know, but here's what they don't understand, Herbert. You can't destroy an idea by destroying the person who speaks it. You can't kill truth by killing the truth-teller. If they come after me, it just proves everything I said on that show was right. He walked back to the window, looking out at the city where he had trained for so many fights. Besides, I got something they don't expect. What's that? Ali smiled, and for the first time since the FBI visit, it was genuine. But I got people. Real people. People who heard what I said and knew it was true. People who are tired of being told to be grateful for crumbs. People who are ready to stand up and fight back. As if on cue, the phone rang. Herbert answered it, listened for a moment, then handed it to Ali with a surprised expression. Champ, it's for you. Says his name is Harry Belafonte. Ali took the phone, curious. Harry Belafonte was one of the most famous entertainers in America, but also one of the most outspoken civil rights activists. Mohammed, this is Harry. I watched your interview with Buckley, and I want you to know that you have allies in this fight. Real allies. People with resources, connections, and the will to fight back against what they're trying to do to you. Ali felt a surge of hope. Mr. Belafonte, I appreciate that, but I don't want to drag other people into my problems. Belafonte's laugh was warm, but determined. My son, these aren't your problems. These are our problems. Every black person in America, every person who believes in justice, every person who's tired of being told to shut up and be grateful, we all have a stake in this fight. He continued, his voice growing more serious. I'm calling because there's a meeting tonight. Some very important people want to discuss how we can support you, how we can turn this attack on you into a movement for all of us. Are you interested? Ali looked at Herbert, who was listening to the conversation with growing excitement. Now where and when? Near my house in New York, 8 o'clock. And Mohammed, bring your courage, because what we're about to do is going to change everything. As Ali hung up the phone, he felt something he hadn't felt since walking out of that CBS studio. Hope. Not just hope for himself, but hope for something bigger, something that could outlast any government investigation, any boxing suspension, any attempt to silence him. The war they had started with that interview was just beginning. But for the first time since it began, Ali realized he wasn't fighting it alone. That evening, as Ali's plane descended into New York, he could see the city lights stretching out below him like stars. Somewhere down there in Harry Belafonte's house, people were gathering who would help him turn his personal fight into a movement that would echo through history. The boy from Louisville, who had thrown his Olympic gold medal into the Ohio River in disgust, was about to become the man who would help throw off the chains of an entire generation. But first, he had to survive the storm that was coming. And that storm was about to become a hurricane. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, wondering what happens when Ali walks into that room, full of civil rights legends, then you absolutely cannot miss what comes next. Smash that subscribe button right now, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment telling me which moment gave you chills. The next chapter reveals the secret meeting that changed the course of American history. And trust me, you've never heard this story told like this before. Don't let YouTube's algorithm make you miss the most powerful part of this incredible true story.